I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, August the 16th, brought to you in part by Joplin Regional Stockyards. Got a pretty average run for this Monday's regular feeder cattle auction, 4,500 head. I talked to Jackie and Skylar last week. I actually saw them and was visiting with them and asking Skylar whenever they were going to start the pooling, the commingled cattle, and he says, we're doing it right now. He says, it brings more money to the producers, the small producers that just have a few head and going to have to sell singles, and singles just never work. That's when your buyers kind of check out there most part. And so they try to group those cattle every week there on Monday. So if you got small bunches to sell, bring them in on Sunday afternoon or evening there, and you can get them commingled with some other people's cattle that are of like kind and get more money out of them that way. But pretty progressive market there at Joplin Regional Stockyards. Food inflation, and that's been a big talk here the last three months here as we notice that the price of everything that we have, especially ever since the last election, is getting higher. And of course the pandemic went along with that, but just everything's getting higher. But probably your groceries and your food and your proteins are one of the worst, or one of the ones that have the highest percentage increase there. And it's because of the gouging of the packers, and we think it's bad on the cattle end. It might be worse on the pork. So your packers are just making so much money, and you wonder why you're not hearing much squealing out of the pork, pun intended there, is because they're all in cahoots, you know. They have co-op type deals, but there's no just independent hog producers left anymore, and that's the way they'd like to get it on the cattle side. And then whenever deals like this come up, there wouldn't be anybody to complain. But it's really getting bad, and we heard on the weekend that the Magoo administration has approved more food stamp welfare. They're going to raise that up a little bit more. I'm not sure where all this money's coming from. Nobody's working for the most part. You go to certain places like, one of my favorite vacation spots is Ruidoso, New Mexico, and been going to go down there to the races. I haven't been since Memorial Day, but a lot of my friends that's been going down there said, well, you better get some groceries when you go because there's no place to eat. The restaurants, and they got plenty of restaurants and a lot of good restaurants there, there's nobody there to work in them. You know, that's a blue state, and all those people reaping all that all those welfare benefits and the free COVID money and everything, they don't want to work. And now they've got they got marijuana approved there. They can lay around and smoke dope and do better than they can working. So nobody wants to work. Nobody can find anybody to do anything. Big nice restaurants are sitting idle, closed, because they can't get anybody to come and do the work. And if the couple of restaurants that they have open, you better have reservations, where that's never been a place that you had to have reservations for. But I think it's like that a lot of places that you go. There's help wanted signs everywhere, and people making like they need help and got their hand out, but it's getting fairly ridiculous. We heard some news about JBS, the farmer's friend, here at the end of the week and over the weekend, but JBS noted that, and it was publicized and put in print there in some different stories, that they had the best quarter they'd ever had in the history of their company this past second quarter. Well, imagine that. Wow, but they're just really loving it here and having a great time, just gouging the consumers and conspiring against the producers. And everything's working in their favor. But also we heard news that come out that said there's two senators, and one of them's Marco Rubio, and they are asking the Treasury Secretary to investigate the owners of JBS. And it stems a lot from them agreeing to pay a $256 million fine. They don't even argue about those. Whenever they find them in fraud or bribing or something like that, they don't even argue about it. That's just part of doing business. That's a Brazilian way, and they just pay the fine. They agreed to pay a $256 million fine for violating the Foreign Corrupt Processors Act there. But they did that in admitting that they had bribed 1,800 Brazilian officials with $150 million. And so if they agreed to do that, and they agreed to all that, then these senators are saying that they jeopardized our economic security by doing that. So if they used, they used money that they got, and a lot of it was from state-owned banks there in Brazil, and they did a lot of bribery and things to get that done. If they used that money to expand their operations in this country, then that kind of jeopardizes our economic security. So yet another investigation into JBS, probably be about the same type of results as all the other investigations. They might, at the worst, they'll fine them pennies on the dollar on how much money they're making, and they'll just write it off and pay it again and just keep rolling and keep acquiring smaller companies and getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's kind of the way they do business. But what else happened last week? We saw a couple of new reports come out that USDA put on. And they were about like we thought. The daily report, the base formula report, it doesn't tell us a whole lot. It's a nationwide report there. You kind of see where your base prices are, but you don't really understand where they come from. Doesn't give a whole lot of information on there particularly. But on the weekly report, where we see how much volume is at every price. Then we also could see how the formula deals, and that's a net report. Net report, whether it's formula, whether it's forward contract, whether it's negotiated grid or negotiated cash price. And we saw that by and large, your negotiated cash, which is what a lot of us kind of thought, in the long run is better than any of the others. There's more volume trading at a higher price when you're selling negotiated cash than any of those others. Yes, there's some premiums, and there's a wide span of premiums and discounts on some of those formulated reports, but there's not much volume at them. And so that what are you gaining? And so that was kind of an interesting thing to see on those two new reports. We saw the big grain report come out on Thursday. It was bullish for corn, and it come out before the board closed there on Thursday. Corn was up 30, but then it backed way off, down or up just 14 cents. And in turn, cattle were down big and then came almost all the way back by the close. So that was a strong measure for cattle, and they really flexed their muscle there quite a bit. But let's talk about your futures market for all of last week. August live cattle futures, Monday was unchanged, Tuesday was up 65, Wednesday down 70, Thursday up 20, Friday down 40, with your August live cattle contract ending the week at 122.75. That was down a quarter for the week, and that stood several deliveries that were tendered, and they just keep re-tendering them at penalty or discount, whatever you want to call it, penalty or a premium to those that want to take them. But they've tendered several deliveries, and usually that knocks them out of bed, and it really hasn't, only down 25 cents a hundred for the week. October ended the week at 128.12, up a quarter. August feeder cattle, Monday was down 55, Tuesday up just 2 cents, and then all the other days down. Wednesday down 55, Thursday down 7, Friday down 65. August feeder cattle ended the week at 158.05, down $1.80. September down just a quarter, 163.07, but we would have thought that it had been worse on Thursday and Friday than it was, but it really wasn't. Corn, with that bullish corn report, December new crop corn ended the week at 5.73 a bushel. That was up 16.5 cents a bushel, but we've seen a whole lot worse than that on this, as we went through this spring and this summer. But your fat cattle trade through Thursday, they'd sold 52,400 head. Live sales, steers and heifers, 119 to 127. That would be a buck higher if you looked at the whole market. It was mostly 121 to 126. Your weighted average through Thursday was 122.84, and that was actually down about a buck from the same time a week ago. So You can't always tell from that whole price trend trend. Let's talk about dress sales, steers and heifers. 1 to 2 higher for the most part, from 197 to 204, but mostly 197 to $2. But still, we had more of that 202, 203 than what we really thought. We didn't see a whole lot of it quoted, but there had to have been some of it, because your weighted average on dress sales was $200.16. So that was up around $2 from the same time a week ago. But we had some Friday sales, so all that will be different by the time we get it all wrapped up by the end of the week's trade. But Friday in Iowa, they had confirmed sales of 2,200, 18,500 head for the week. Live sales 125 to 127.50. That was at the extreme top, and even pushed it a half a dollar over the top that we'd seen through the week. Dress sales from 198 to 204. And a lot of that was at the top too, and we're going to see those weighted averages go up some more, because that's the biggest volume we saw was in Iowa, and they were towards the top of the price trends, and they are very current in the northern plains and the Midwest. So that's we should see those guys drive the market, and cattle are getting smaller, they're not grading quite as well, and so they're going to be really going after those cattle that's been on feed a long time, the heavier cattle, the cattle that are going to grade the best. Nebraska, 1,400 head on Friday, 16,700 head for the week, 120 to 123. So that those price spreads didn't even cross. Nebraska was selling live sales from 120 to 123, and Iowa 125 to 127.5. You got a $2 gap in that spread. That's never happens. How about dress sales from 201 to 205? But we saw the dress sales on the better cattle up at the top and even higher than what Iowa had. So it's crazy out there when your packers are working guys over and they get them to sell their cattle, and likely they should stick with some of their other producer buddies and try to get more leverage and push the market a little bit. Southern Plains didn't trade squat this week. 100 more head on Friday in Kansas, just 15,200 head for the week. Only sales they had were 121. Texas had less than 100 on Friday, and only 5,582 cattle sold in all of the Texas Panhandle, eastern New Mexico, western Oklahoma, and the Oklahoma Panhandle, and all those feedlots. Less than 5,600 cattle, guys. And then they're going to throw the negotiated grids in there and say, oh yeah, we had robust trade. No, they're not trading enough to wad a shotgun in Texas Panhandle. The only sales they had quoted on Texas on Friday was some mixed bag cattle at 121. Box beef cutout values just rocketed higher. So, you know, your packers are already back at it again. They're smelling this COVID deal come back again, and they're wanting to gouge a little bit more. Your choice cuts, your weighted average on all of last week's sales, $311.73. That was up $22.73 a hundred for the week, compared to the weighted average from the previous week's sales. And then your late week sales were much higher than that, so we've already gained a bunch more than that. Late week sales were almost $325. Select weighted average on all of last week's sales, $288.35. That was up $17.77 from the previous week's weighted average. And late week sales Friday afternoon were $298.02, so a lot higher than that. But on last week's sales, 529 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings. They moved through there. Let's talk about what else is going on. We've got big videos. You got videos, and they're all in Wyoming for the most part. Spears got their Bighorn Classic in northern Wyoming. Western Video Market's got their big sale in Cheyenne and southern Wyoming. And that's where all the action is going to be on your forward contracting. Mostly people looking to see what the calves are going to bring. I do want to mention that up at Sheridan during the Superior sale, some of my buddies, Jess Peterson and Justin Tupper with U.S. Cattlemen's Association, are going to be giving a talk on Tuesday evening, I think 6 to 8 there at Holiday Inn in Sheridan. And if you guys are going or close by, you sure want to go to that. They're going to talk all about the legislation that's been going on and what we can get done and what they think we need to do, and what's feasible, what's attainable, in getting a mandate done for minimum negotiated trade, and which one of these bills, or maybe a hybrid of them, more likely is going to happen. So be sure and pay attention to that if you can. But Western Video Market in Cheyenne, they're starting on Monday morning at 9:15 Central, and they got their yearlings starting out on Monday morning. So Sprayer will be selling calves, and Western will be selling yearlings 9:15 Central Time out of Cheyenne, Little America there. They've got a lot of nice yearlings. A lot of them are pretty close to the central part, close to the 5 areas. They've got a lot of Western Nebraska yearlings on there. They got some Wyoming yearlings on there. I think some Colorado's on there too. That's going to be a really good test of your yearling market here for the last of the summer yearlings coming off. Got a lot of those cattle will be program cattle. You definitely need to get on to wvmcattle.com or just go to dvauction.com and select a Western Video Market sale, because we take the online bids for them. So they're going to have a lot of those. They'll have a lot of weaned calves later on in the sale, and they'll have a lot of those fancy calves right off the cow there in your mountain states and back west there where they're kind of headquartered. But don't miss your Western Video Market sale in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Let's talk about your market and your sale barns late in the week last week. Your real-time index on DV auction ended the week at 154.73. That was down 88 cents for the week, which makes sense because your cash feeders in your sale barns for the week were pretty much steady to $2 lower. And an edge is off a little bit on your yearlings. There's still lots of demand for them, but there are some more of those bigger calves, especially in the northern part, that are sneaking into that index weight range, which is 700 to 899 pounds. And anytime you get calves in there, it's going to water down your price a little bit, because they just cannot. They might be prettier, but they cannot perform like those agey yearlings that they've been getting out of the Flint Hills, and we still got some more of them. They've got some agey yearlings on that Western Video Market sale, but I think that's probably as much responsible for your market coming down a little bit on your yearling feeders as anything, because still a lot of demand for them and still some big prices. Let's look at around the circuit at what was going on late in the week. Fort Scott Livestock Market in Fort Scott, Kansas on Saturday had an awful good sale. They sold a big load, 61 head, 896 pound steers, scaring the hell out of 900 pounds at 152 1/4 there in Fort Scott, Kansas. That's eastern Kansas. Pretty good sale there. And then you go up north and it gets even wilder. How about Bloomington Livestock Exchange, Bloomington, Wisconsin? How about a load of 920 pound steers? Bring 155 on Friday there. That's awful good sale there in Bloomington. The best sale we saw late in the week last week was at Winter Livestock Auction in Winter, South Dakota. They had 3,600 head of feeders there on kind of a special they had. And look at this automated market report. This is the only place you'll find a market report there from a third party there out of Winter, South Dakota. Look at your best tested weights. About 235 head of your 6-weight steers in winter. Average 643 with a weighted average price of 176.38. About 327 head of your 7-weight steers. Average 759 at 163.56 on your weighted average price. 242 head of the 8-weight steers averaged 840 with an average price of 160.15. That deep in your 8s, guys. And then 615 head of 9-weight steers in Winter, South Dakota averaged 926 with a weighted average price of 155.32. That's on all them 600 and some 9-weights that they had there at the sale barn. Then 300 in on the heifer side. Let's look at 311 head. 6-weight heifers averaged 660 at 160.67. 326 head of the 7-weight heifers averaged 740, 153.67. And then 707 head of your 8-weight heifers averaged 850 with a weighted average price of 149.37. And the biggest stick out deal I saw from that winter sale, and your Zach Tran top quote for the day, was 64 head, 941 pound steers, bring $160 smooth. And that's your feeder flash for Monday.